Hi everyone, welcome once again to the 24-bit podcast. This should be episode number 74 something. It's been ages since we last shot, but lots of things have happened since the last time we had a podcast episode, and today we are going to focus on the major one, the one that's right on your head. And as usual, I'm joined by the regular suspects.
Dixon Otieno, techish.com.
And Nick Anali from Tech Trends.
Just Emmanuel here. You can read more about what I write on androidkenya.com. So, gentlemen, right into it. I sent some notes, and I've titled the title of those notes, which I hope will be the title of this podcast, to be Tech in a Time of Protest. For those not in the know, Kenya has seen some of the most visible, most vibrant, largest protests in the country in a while, maybe in over 30 years or something, or probably ever. I'm not sure about the historical context, but it's been a while since we saw the kinds of crowds that have been in downtown Nairobi, in most towns and cities and trading centers in Kenya. Probably almost never happened. In the context of Nairobi, you might look at the multi-party era in the early 90s, the clamor for multi-party and all of that, and most recently in the 2000s, 2010s, and the 2020s, we've had the protests by the opposition that have drawn people to the streets. But I don't think in the history of this country we've seen protests that have drawn people in almost all corners of the country. We had guys in Maralal protesting, we had guys in Marsabit protesting, we had my laid-back people in Kilifi protesting. So it's been all over. But while there's a lot happening in the political and governance context, our bias on this podcast is usually on tech. And on that tech front, I think for the first time ever, we saw civic engagement and civic action that was primarily driven by tech. Yeah, so we will start there. And before we go any further, after such an introduction to what we're going into, at this point we want to pass our condolences to all those who've lost their lives in that struggle during those protests as a result of police brutality. And we wish everyone who's still in the hospital, who's still nursing wounds, who has injuries as a result again of the excessive use of force by the Kenya police, wish them a quick recovery. So, gentlemen, first things first, how do you place the context of the protests and the use of tech? Like, what was your biggest takeaway before we go into specifics?
My biggest takeaway is how tech can inform. Because last year we had the Finance Bill 2023, it had its controversies. Politicians called people to the streets, people protested, it still went through. This year, you remember when we were doing our trip to UG, and I think it's you who raised the finance bill proposition in a motor vehicle 2.5 tons, and you're like, itapitishwa because they are brutal, what a force kupitisha, and we were like, ikipita sawa. But then you come to TikTok and somebody you've never seen is breaking it down, and I say, let's look at the finance bill. And the bill is really hard to read because it says delete this section, insert this section. So you have to look at what the bill is saying, then go to the section that's being deleted. So it was like the reading process requires you to look at different documents to know what's being changed and what's being included. And I like the way TikTokers, lawyers who are on TikTok, normal people who are on TikTok were breaking it down and saying, this is the change that's coming here, this is the change that's coming here, this is the change that's coming here. So the tech aspect of information really made people aware that, government wants to do this, then I'll be on the street. But then it also brought about a lot of fake news where people were like, wanaongeza hii pia kwa bill, which might not have been there, but it fueled the anger.
So we saw aspects that were contained in other bills that were in the house for consideration around the same time, but being
people
piled
thought it was
onto the
part of
finance
the
bill.
For example, kulikuwa na something kuhusu land,
Yeah.
so people brought about other things that were not on the bill but were also controversial in some way. But what I really liked is the information. What husema Kenyans don't read, but we've always argued that Kenyans husoma udaku, Kenyans husoma nini, and here you are with even gossip columns talking about the finance bill, influential people on social media talking about the finance bill.
Heck, we even had Maina and Kingangi talking about the finance.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's something you brought out about like the bill being broken down and spoken in a language that people understand. Because normally there's all this legal jargon that goes with anything constitutional, anything court related, all of those. We saw that turned on its head. So saying tech to inform, you can also say there was a what is this word? Democratization of tech. Like for instance, there's a guy, is it Mushiri?
Mushiri,
yeah, who inspired this entire movement around
Created an Instagram account.
It was called what?
Translate to mother tongue, Ama?
No, there's a name they were using it. Yeah, but it inspired a whole movement where we have that finance bill broken into consumable bits in almost every language, vernacular language in the country, which made it very easy
for more people to understand.
Yeah, to understand, because we are the keyword being used throughout has been the quote unquote Gen Z revolution. But Gen Z are not just urbanites or the iPhone toting, KFC eating,
Uber riding.
Young ones that somebody infamously mentioned, but they're also other people who are younger all over the country, and as a result, everyone was able to relate. For you, Nick,
and actually, some of them didn't have the privilege. I mean, don't have the privilege of actually accessing the things us in the urban setting actually access. So, and actually, be surprised how fast those videos were spreading across. When you watch in your family WhatsApp group, those videos are there. You know, like big. So, just back to what you asked about how tech was. It's basically how it's also. But I know Kenya has a very vibrant tech ecosystem, but again, this just opened up another, big, ecosystem on how Kenyans, like for example, the GPT, platform people are actually unveiling, right? People are tumezoea to GPT ni this other tumezoea chat GPT and everything.
You saw people build GPTs to explain the bill, to explain corruption by politicians and all that.
Of course, we've seen some of those websites being brought down, but just how Kenyans came together, and it didn't matter actually if basically people were using the tools they have. The tech tools they have, like TikTok. People are creating reels, and all this was just being shared, and we actually saw a lot of international media pick this up as a very main story on how just Kenya was using tech to just amplify this message.
Okay, so you tech to inform using the tech tools at your disposal. So now you've already spoken to this TikTok, Instagram reels. So what from your end, what was your biggest takeaway from the use of social media to advance the cause of the protest? Because how this started was initially opposition to the finance bill, which was before the National Assembly for consideration and passage into law before presidential assent. That's how it started. There was hashtag reject finance bill 2024, but then that morphed into a whole movement to basically get President Ruto's government out of power, and the hashtag turned into Ruto must go. So what has been the role of social media from your observation?
I think social media really played the biggest role in this, right? And the good thing is there was no way the government was going to shut down social media, because of course it's an open platform, so you can't just go and shut down. So I think how just Kenya was able to mobilize, and you actually be surprised how even the government didn't know this was going to happen, right? The conversations were there. What were
Did they really not know?
I'm sure they didn't,
because part of the thing that we don't speak out loud about is what kind of espionage goes on around. We use devices, basically almost anything with an IP address is fodder for intelligence agencies. So I don't know, not to cut your train of thoughts, but did they really not know?
Okay, maybe they did, but they're just trying to be careful on how to react, right? So that we don't have issues like, for example, the killings are happening, the excessive use by the police. But just back to what you asked, social media, it's just interesting how everyone went to social media. People are doing lives, even when you go for the process, they're going live, just breaking down all these things. And you'll go on my page, for example, you get even the least people that talk about these things, talking about it. Because just how big social media was being used on this, you just spread these messages.
For me, I think it's still on information is power. I think governments stay in power and pass laws that are not. When you look at it retrogressively, utakuwa unasema, how did this become law? Why was this passed? Like, why were people not heard ama vitu kama hizo? But I guess it's just because information never gets out there. This time around, information has gotten out, and I was thinking of when I was studying history and you were told about leaflets during the KANU era, where people would get leaflets and these leaflets are branded as propaganda. And then I was thinking, so I was thinking, what was in those leaflets that made the government brand them as propaganda? It could have been information yenye tumeona being passed out on social media this time round, where you're being told about how government is spending your taxes excessively and with no account. For example, this is the first time I learned that officers in the executive have confidential budgets that reach up to 1 billion shillings in total. So you're like, how do you have a confidential budget based on public taxes? So you're getting information that you didn't previously know in mediums you'd never previously expected, because Citizen and TV, KTN never focus on that.
All they're talking is also off.
Exactly.
Our media likes to present it as a battle between the opposition and the sijui nini, who is taking over, who is but it's never about passing information about taxes are being spent, vitu kama hizo. And I like that information, the information has shifted what local media can do. Right now, if you watch TV, you'll get stories about expenditure, because people on Twitter, people on TikTok are talking about it. You'll get stories about the budget vizuri venye inakuwa spent, which offices are getting which budgets and vitu kama hizo. Things that were, yes, publicly available, but never publicly spoken about. So I like that shift.
Publicly available, but not exactly accessible.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Because we still had the Finance Bill 2023. I mean, there was no noise about it.
There was. People went to the streets.
But it was very limited, right?
Yes.
There was still, I mean, as the president was saying, some of these MPs are talking about, we always have every year financial bill. It was because of the thing this was talking about. Like, the info is there,
To be honest,
it's also just, I think for me, it's also just the disregard to this content yenye imekuwa ikibuild. Because
like
one, businesses have said no. Yes. Corporates have come out and said no.
Actually,
individuals
have the first time came out publicly
and said no.
Thing.
So I think there was this thing that has been building up where citizens' concerns are not taken seriously. Then watu wako na volatile business situation where you don't know what tax you're paying this year. There needs to be stability in taxation na nini, so that you can build a business. You can say, I'm confident in this market. So everyone was discontent, but government wasn't seeing that.
I think also this was the time we also saw a lot of public engagement, because we've not, I'm not sure, but this is the biggest we've seen public engagement being held, where now it's actually open to know the church is there, civil service is there, but of course forget about the church. But this is the most we've seen public engagement being actually, because I mean 2023
I think it was intent. If there's one thing that I've been very happy has been happening this entire time, my timeline is usually very political on Twitter, and it's always been, I think, for as long as many people have known me. But that's usually like lost. It's like this. If you're in outer space and you encounter a black hole, for me, the experience has been like that. Then all of a sudden, I have everyone around me being very political and moving from their apolitical cocoons and amplifying the same. Why am I saying this? Because if I'm to go back as far as 2020, every other year, I have at least one article on unpack.com where I've written about finance bill. Because there's almost always a change. And I think it didn't start in 2020, started around 2017, 2018.
I think so.
Hikes, excise duty on this that affects
mobile
some
money,
of the mobile money,
smartphones,
data charges, all of those, the things we basically cover. So that has been there. We've approached it in a very sectarian way, like the tech angle. Other people have picked bits that concern them, but all of that has built up. 2017 up to now is around 7 years?
I know.
Yes.
That has built up. At some point, this camel that was carrying all these goods, the back was going to be broken. Punda richoka at some point. And I think they added grievances over time are the ones that finally broke the camel's back. But then there's also been the emphasis on the generational bit. All of us here are millennials. There's
all of us, okay.
You are a late stage. Late stage. We are, myself and Nick are late millennials. You are a late stage millennial, like the one who just missed out on the Gen Z bandwagon. Yeah. So by just being categorized that way, there's a lot of nonsense that we usually take.
You could say so, but it's also just access to information. We've grown up in an era where social media came and found us. We've grown up in an era where history was taught to us in a way that, we've seen the dictatorship, we've experienced it, tumekunywa hiyo maziwa, tumefanya nini. But here is a generation that hasn't. There is a generation that has been getting what they want when they want it in ways that like they're not scared of talking. Like I have cousins and siblings when wangeenda shule waambie principal, me I don't want to be in your school. Give me initoaje nitoe kwa shule yako, things that sisi tungekuwa like sasa nitaambiaje mzazi si hata mwalimu. So you can see the difference in generation in that way, because I guess it's just bado na peg on access to information and the ability to know that this is your right.
We've seen people giving examples of how someone showed up, they had someone as an intern, akuja kazi asubuhi, the next morning anambia no skuji because I feel this is not you know, like it's you couldn't do that, you know.
So having that background, because my contribution to this debate will be, I had an interesting case, I think like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. My brother joined a school as Form 1, and towards the end of that year they were supposed to choose some subjects, so he chose his list of subjects. My brother comes from that other age group that follows us, what people are calling Gen Z, and he chose his group of subjects, and somehow because the school needs to maintain its perceived top status and performance, they have to do bogus subjects like CRE
so that
to boost the mean. So you've picked your serious subjects. You can't do them because the school has CRE as compulsory. So I remember me engaging the teacher and telling them, okay, while I understand why you are doing this, and from my end is just because you have to pad your mean score, why wouldn't you let the boy do his preferred subject combination? They are hard subject, but is equal to it. Anyway, long story short, he got an A in the said subjects. But why will you not let the boy? And the teacher was like, we've never seen this. And also from the back of my head, from my experience schooling, we never ever used to do those kinds of things. But this was my brother, and this was backup. They let him do it. He was the only kid that did that entire very strange subject combination, but they let him do. Previously, that would not have been possible, and they eventually let him do after a lot of noise from my end, and I wouldn't relent because I didn't see the sense in this guy wants to do these subjects. It's his choice. The subjects are offered, and those subjects there's no time conflict
with the timetable.
Because when you sit with people who studied abroad at college level, they'll tell you, I picked these units, I picked these. In Kenyan universities, we don't do that. No one has questioned that. So there's a whole generational difference. And then what Finance Bill 2024 didn't have is that it didn't have the advantage of time. It was proposed and being passed at a time when those people from that generation had come of age and they could speak up. And you are bound to listen, because now they're the majority of like the active voter base, and the people who are coming to the voter base, and then combine them with the millennials, they actually make up 3/4 of the country. That had to be listened to. Now, something Dixon said, the emergence of platforms where we really didn't expect to see that kind of civic engagement. We've seen these sites. One has been done by your friend Irving. Is that we've had the GPTs?
I think Kelvin demo. I think.
So what has been your engagement with those? What kind of impact do you think they've had in our understanding of governance, political issues?
I think one of the most interesting things is Kenya has had, I think it was Bitange Ndema Manani related the Silicon Savannah name to Kenya. I don't know, Wakati Vision 2030 came about. So we've always been seen as a tech forward nation, and here is a tech forward sort of solution. People I've been talking about ChatGPT for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we actually talked about it in our first or second episode when we did this focus on AI, and we were like, this AI needs to move from
being just a tool where it's
a few artists can use it to change,
to being democratized, to reach a lot of people.
And at that point, we didn't
expect it to get here. So here is someone sitting, training a GPT to know the Kenyan constitution, training it with the data from the finance bill propositions, and putting it in public. I'm sure GPTs still don't have a revenue share model. So it was just a free tool. Somebody took his time, went, trained it, and put it in public. And this is the most interesting bit, because ukienda nyumbani ama interact na the young people, utaambiwa I used ChatGPT for my assignment, I used ChatGPT for my research, vitu kaa hizo. Utapata hata older people, boomers na nini, wanakuuliza what is ChatGPT, how can I access it na vitu kaa hizo. So here is a moment where there is need for civic education, but then tech balance the access, where as long as you have internet, you can type chatgpt.com ama the link to the finance bill GPT and ask it as many questions as you want in your language. Like you don't have to use legal legal language ama nini kuielewa, and it will break down the new pointers na the bad pointers of the finance bill. So it wasn't about what Citizen is saying, ama what my MP is saying, ama what some MCA amelipwa anasema. It was about what you can access and what you've asked and how it is answering you to a level that you understand best. Because ChatGPT doesn't answer you according to nini prior to nini. It answers you on your own language, in a way that you read and understand. Ukitaka kuuliza Kiswahili, ukitaka kuuliza nini, it answers.
And I think that's why, because what we've seen previously is how politicians will go and lie about some things. You know, wanasema no, hapana,
a politician was telling people that finance bill itawaletea barabara.
Exactly.
So but now here we was saying no hii kitu haikuwa na what an increase in the price of bread.
Exactly.
And mainstream media were just relaying that as
mainstream media has been saying what politicians are saying instead of investigating ama saying their version. Fact checking is the word.
That's why I love, but Citizen actually tries. Citizen tries doing that breakdown of those numbers. Okay, they try, but maybe they can do better. So
somebody said mainstream media iache kusema billion, iandike tu hizo 09.
Give context, because we've actually seen, one of the things that came out of this entire protest period, and I feel guilty calling it protest period because I don't know where we are in the protest, or if this is the end. Chances are this is just the beginning of this kind of high-level civic engagement. Is we've become so desensitized to the amount of plunder and theft of public resources that when we see $1 billion, we say it casually. We don't think it's life-changing money. I don't know when I'll die, but if somebody gave me $1 billion shillings right now, I'm pretty sure I won't consume it to the end.
There were breakdowns
by the time I die
for them.
That's how much. I saw somebody say like
$1
spending
billion
100,000 shillings
per hour for the next 27 years. Bado hautakuwa umemaliza.
5,000 per day. I think I saw that. I mean,
does any of you spend, leave alone 100,000 shillings per hour? Does any of you spend 100,000 shillings per day?
No.
For example, 4.3 billion is 490,000 every hour. If you're spending 4.3 billion in a year, you're spending 500k every hour for a whole year. And how many Kenyans are dying because they can't afford 50,000, 20,000?
Even 10, actually, even 5.
It's actually college admission month, and there are lots of kids. I think it's been front page headlines that there are lots of kids who
can't afford.
And they actually, knowing that status of themselves and their parents, they actually never chose any colleges, despite scoring the grades that allow them to go there. So that's where we are. And then from these protests we've seen, Kenyans have funded the medical care of the people who were killed and those who were injured by the excessive use of force by the police. Last I checked, to the tune of 30 million shillings. that amount alone has done so much. We've had
Yes.
this, 6 figures being sent to the families of the
families,
bereaved, bills being cleared in the entirety at referral hospitals across the country.
surgery.
Not according to Nahumi.
But then in the same week, we had a headline where over 300 million shillings was lost by the National Health Insurer due to a typing error. Right? So that's the kind of desensitization that has been happening, but also that's the kinds of facts that basically by using GPTs, those who would like to bury information are not able to. Now, bringing that up, there's been something interesting that's been going on. Weka namba tumsalimie.
Yeah.
And we had a very interesting statement from the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. So at what point do your
At what
rights,
point does privacy
privacy begin and the right to access your representatives and information end? Because that has been, I think, quote unquote, an interesting tech challenge over the last 3 or so weeks, because we've seen numbers of people who are in the public eye being shared by members of the public. So what are your tech?
Well, of course, to some extent you'll agree with what ODPC is saying about data privacy and all those things, about sharing data. I mean, they're right, yes. But again, what happens when you can't access this leader? What happens when you want to pass the message to this leader? You can't find them, right? And
The thing is,
and you need to understand, Pia, Kenyans were angry. That's the thing.
I don't think it's just anger and access. I think once you're a publicly elected official, you have people have the right to access you. These numbers, hawakuchukua their private numbers wakatuma. These are numbers that are listed.
So they're
these are
available
publicly
somewhere.
available numbers. You're the MP for somewhere, you have a public phone number, you have a public way of people accessing you. The whole idea of you being an MP is you are a representative. How is a representative supposed to be accessed? And the idea of kusalimiana,
But they are there in burials and weddings over there.
In Harambee.
the whole idea of kusalimiana haianzi Kenya. You know it from the US.
Actually, the US, you have campaigns where
Yes.
call your representative.
Call your representative, tell them not
this.
to pass this bill in Congress.
Yeah.
Call your representative, tell them not to pass this. Yeah. So it's just an awakening in Kenya, I would say, where representatives need to know that the people access to them should not be a problem. I have seen websites being pulled down because they've listed the representatives' numbers. But these are the same representatives' contacts that are available on their foundation websites. They are available on their parliamentary websites.
Interesting. Now, still on the same tools, we've seen government agencies come back. There was a big internet shutdown. We're coming back to it. But we've seen government agencies come to shut down some of those. We've seen attempts to charge people who are engaging the way you said, trying to contact representatives or making awareness of contacts to representatives publicly. Where does it start? Where does it fall? Like, for instance, in the case of Mukasa's platform, is Kenik on the right?
Okay, context is there was a website that was opened, rutomustgo.co.ke. One, the president has already said it's your prerogative. It's not even him to say, but the constitution allows your right to an opinion and a stand na vitu kaa hizo. It also allows your right to what is it called, protest na vitu kaa hizo. Your right to picket and protest is not limited in how it's supposed to work. If you want to protest digitally, if you want to protest on the ground, if you want to protest by standing on your rooftop and shouting, it's protest. So one of the mechanisms of protest that we've seen is that website. But the Kenya whatever sijui jina yao inaishaje,
Kenya Network Information Center
decided that website is wrong and they pulled it down. Reason given, article sijui what of the constitution,
and
privacy,
also the sharing
data,
of those numbers, right?
Yes. But Kenik is not asking itself, asking where these numbers are from. These numbers are for publicly elected representatives.
And they're somewhere online. Actually.
Yes. It's not illegal for people to have access to their representatives. If that's what Kenik is arguing, it means somebody should go to court and argue that having access to your representative is illegal because it's a public number, it's a private number. Two, the website was giving information on all MPs who voted against the wishes of Kenyans.
Yeah.
So it was listing the MP, their contact, and their social media platform. The website wanted to even have the list of businesses of all these MPs so that people know how these MPs are voting and how their businesses are working. So that when you're pushing for a change from your MP, your representative, the idea was that people do not give businesses to MPs who do not support people's opinions. Kenny put it down because the right to privacy in Abituka, all of a sudden we have a right to privacy. When there are websites in Kenya where you get those phishing access links. You've seen the poster phishing link, now other links where your personal data is available publicly, and there has been no mention of the same. Same to the ODPP. How many days do you wake up on Friday to 17 texts, the promotions where you didn't sign up?
Even in the middle of the night.
Yes.
They're shameless.
Nobody has ever mentioned or made a statement saying, oh, this is illegal. So it's a double standard.
Yeah, double standard, you see. I think ODP just needs to come out clear and see, okay, is it only data privacy when it's a Kenyan doing it, yeah?
A Kenyan politician
Exactly.
or an influential person or basically someone who can buy themselves whatever they can buy themselves kind of access that they get in Kenya. Still staying on the suppression bit, we saw bits of shadow banning of the hashtag. Like you couldn't have reject finance bill 2024 being auto-completed when you are searching or even when you are tweeting
Twitter
directly. And then recently, Ruto must go.
Yeah.
So
one, I think the problem people have been saying is Twitter, but I think it's just how people play with Twitter. Because what you will find is mistakes on the hashtag, and those ones will be amplified more than the more than the actual hashtag. So I think the play here is have bots tweet the wrong thing so that the algorithm inakuwa confused. I don't know. Yes.
But is that really, I mean, Elon was talking about freedom. I mean, there hasn't been a free platform. Why suppress this hashtag?
free speech.
Free
He
speech,
actually
Free speech.
rode on that free speech agenda even before he bought Twitter into the time he acquired
Elon's free
Twitter.
speech agenda is not agenda for Kenya. It's agenda for their politics.
It's the US. It doesn't give a damn about the rest of us because it's not the first time we are seeing Twitter, or what they call X these days, being at the center of civic engagement and governance issues. After all, it's what we call it's the internet's town hall, and we saw the former CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, was amplifying the protests in Nigeria during EndSARS. So Kenyans with such a backdrop probably expecting something similar, not even being denied visibility. Because that happened. And my question was, number one, was that Twitter self-censoring, or was it an ask by the government?
I still think it's the government because there were bots tweeting the wrong hashtags. There were bots confusing the algorithm on what's actually trending. So when you have an algorithm that's running and it inajiuliza what's trending, and a lot of people are putting as many as 7 of the same hashtags in there, they need to push the hashtag to trend, and then you have bots pushing the wrong tag, then I think there was a confusion. But sidhani ka Twitter was in play. If it was in play, I'll be shocked.
But again,
but I won't be surprised.
Exactly, because that hashtag was trending globally, almost across different countries. So of course, we'll expect.
But then there was times when it was number 1 at 3 million, then it drops to 500k. I didn't understand those numbers.
So I'm so sure Elon or or his team at X saw it, right?
I don't think Elon even knows what was happening. There's just influence here, government in those spaces maybe.
Well, now let's talk about the big one. Was our internet shut down or not?
The internet was shut down. Hakuna two ways. One, the first thing that happened is this. I was in town. Tulikuwa kwa protest. It was the biggest protest turnout. I've never gone to a protest in my life. This was my first time. Town was full. You're literally squeezing yourself between people to move. It was that full. Internet was working. We could tweet, we could post our videos. What happens when 1 million people gather and use one mast? What happens normally? There's throttling, because you're all relying on one mast, a couple of masts around you. But we were in town and everything was working. Everyone was tweeting, everyone was commenting. People were on TikTok live na vitu hizo. Why is it that at around 4 p.m. that stops? All of a sudden, when people have been tweeting and protesting and going live and recording and posting since around 8 a.m. Sindio? It means there's a problem. Tell me a mast went down, but did a mast go down across Kenya? Then you access things like Telegram, WhatsApp, you can send message. You access YouTube in a play. Twitter is not working. Then all of a sudden, everything is not working. Your YouTube starts buffering. Your home fiber starts having issues. But my Airtel was working.
And Airtel also came out saying the same thing, fiber.
Airtel also said there was a fiber cut, but the internet was working. At least mine was working when Safaricom was not working.
Yeah, while I might entertain that fiber cut explanation, now what explains specifically Twitter not being accessible?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is it not?
The fiber cut was specific to
Twitter. Is there a fiber running into Kenya that's just affecting Twitter? 2, I saw some independent bodies like NetBlocks, like Cloudflare rather, mentioned that there was specifically no fiber cut affecting our region. So there was somebody messing up with the exchange point for Kenyan internet.
In fact, there was that statement that was released by Access Now. They were talking about how connectivity dropped national by 40% across at least 20 networks. So Cloudflare reported impacts on major networks, including Safaricom, Wananchi, JTL, and of course, Signal X also saw an increase in anomalies due to connectivity issues, mostly on Safaricom.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't have all these independent bodies say one thing and then you want to gaslight Kenyans to believing you fixed a fiber cut in less than 20 hours. The last time we had a fiber cut, you remember how long it took to fix.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I also expect people like Seacom to issue a statement on
Yes,
the same.
because
Nothing
Safaricom
happened.
handles no fiber.
Yeah, Safaricom statement came first before even the like of Seacom.
Yes.
Okay. Going forward, what's
The worst
like,
thing, Mimi,
what are we looking
wacha
at?
nikwame
in
hapa
terms
kwa
of
internet
engagement?
shutdown.
Yeah.
The worst thing is this. Last year but one, Telegram was shut down in Kenya.
Yeah.
Because
Nobody
of,
meant
national
because of
exams or
national
something.
exams.
It means there is a system in Kenya that can
And
shut
CA
down.
denied that.
Yes. When international bodies have said Kenya lost about how many billion from the Telegram shutdown. So
Billions.
if international bodies can say there was a shutdown, independent international bodies that monitor the internet, what is it for Kenya to come and claim there was none? So we've had 2 instances of shutdowns from this government, Telegram and internet shutdown on 25th June. What are we looking at? 1, internet shutdowns don't affect just the social media platform you're accessing.
Yeah.
When there's an complete internet shutdown, you can't transact. We've built a platform where everything is paid via eCitizen.
Yeah.
So what happens when you decide to shut down the internet? For those few minutes that internet was shut down, before the president's address was clear, mpaka internet inawaka unajiuliza nini imehappen. How many billions have been lost in transactions, ama in access, ama in healthcare emergencies na vitu kaa hizo.
Actually, I also remember Access Now still warning, I mean, last year during the elections, about there was a possibility of actually shutting down the internet because of the misinformation that was going around. So,
if you shut down internet during elections, how do you transmit the data when our requirement for transmission of elections is via?
Anyway, any closing remarks? How do you see the future of civic engagement? Yeah, I know we can go on and on the entire day.
What about the influencers? Ditching Safaricom.
Yeah, as a result of the perceived role of the telco in all of this. I didn't see statements from you guys.
I saw a lot of tweets.
Let's start here. I didn't see statements from you guys. What happened?
I wrote a whole article explaining the internet shutdown, arguing against what the CEO of Safaricom was saying. CEO of Safaricom came with a self-shot video claiming there was no internet shutdown. But whom do we trust here? Safaricom buys access from Seacom na nini sijui. Who do we trust? NetBlocks ama Safaricom? An international monitoring body ama a local company that is 35% owned by government? Who do you trust? 2, do you trust what the government says or what you saw with your own phone? Was your YouTube buffering? Was your Twitter not working?
Nothing was working on my end. Nothing. Actually, I usually have an Airtel SIM that I use when traveling to other African countries because Airtel has this nice One Africa bundles, so you can buy calling packages, data packages, all of those. I just dusted it off, bought a bundle, the 12 GB plus free WhatsApp for 1,000 bob, and that's what I was using to access the internet. Here's the best thing: they shut down everything because immediately after I bought the airtime to buy that bundle, even
you couldn't buy airtime.
M-Pesa wasn't working. None of those things were working. So I really don't know what happened, but.
Because how is a fiber cut fixable in a few hours? Hata cut kuna redundancy ngapi? The last time we had a fiber cut, internet had issues for about 3 days. Here was fiber cut yenye ilikuwa fixed in a few hours. When, remember, the last time we had a fiber cut, there wasn't demand on the internet because there were no protests.
Yeah.
Here you have a peak where there are protests, people are accessing the network, and people are doing a lot of things online, where the fiber cut is magically fixed in a few hours.
I mean, the timing was just wrong. Well, from my end, actually, we covered the shutdown in so many articles, like I think around 3 articles. But when we post that video Peter Ndegwa released on our TikTok, the comments.
Wait, you uploaded it on your TikTok?
On our TikTok page, the statement by Peter Ndegwa.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
part of the
content.
reporting.
Yeah, part of reporting, exactly. Yeah. And the comments, But do you think Savcom should have just stayed away from issuing that statement?
I can't speak about
I'm
Safaricom.
not a PR professional, so I can't speak to those
a minor
bits.
shareholder.
It's just that Kenyans wanted the truth, because the ripple effect has been my opening line, and what you guys brought me back to just as I was winding up this episode. We've seen influencers and artists come out to say
Pull
they're
their
shunning,
music, saying they're shutting,
Safaricom. So we've had I've seen at least an artist say they're pulling the music off the Skiza platform. Skiza, for those who are not Kenyans, is the ringback tone. So when you call somebody the tune that plays in your ear, and it's a big revenue generating source for artists in Kenya, besides live performances, and these days we have music streaming platforms. So we've had an artist pull their music from Skiza, and we've had several influencers. I've seen Magunga, I've seen Ombachi, several come out to say it was good while it lasted. Whatever you did, you guys, doesn't align with our values. So that's where we are.
I would like to see a more active business space in the political arena, because the businesses that are affected are many. Whenever you have a volatile taxation situation in a country where each year you don't know, like I said, what new taxes will be introduced. You remember the digital service tax? Yes. It affected a lot of businesses. They didn't know how to go about that. Consultants in Kenya are having...
While you are still there on that beat, what e-teams is affecting everyone.
That's what I was going. Consultants and businesses are having a very big problem currently, generating invoices and payments, because there's a directive that you have to do it via e-teams. There have been problems with 2 different platforms for e-teams. eCitizen one, KRA one. Which one do you go with? Is it eCitizen, KRA? Do you access it from the KRA website? Currently, the e-teams platform has been down for a while. Is it back up? I don't know. The problem is, does it actually work? Because if you create an invoice, you find people claiming the other side hasn't received notification for the same. You're having issues with eCitizen, where there's a report currently that billions have been lost from having one platform accept every payment. You're having issues where businesses don't know things about housing and passing initiative housing levy, passing that down to the consumers and all that. You're having an eco tax on certain businesses that was proposed in the new finance bill and all that. So I want to see a level where businesses and corporations in Kenya also make a stand on governance issues in Kenya. It's not just you side with government when it works for you and then your business dies in the end and all that.
I mean, things like, for example, just as we wind up the e-teams one, if you're a manager in a business and you implement something and it's not working, I mean, the main reason of the e-teams was for them to raise revenue, but they keep missing their targets, right? If you see something's not working, you switch, you change, right? And
I just want to get to a more stable business environment in Kenya, where it's, for 5 years, this is the taxation, this is what it does. Every year, new taxation laws, Nanini, don't work for me. It don't seem right in a country where we've been hailed as a stable country for very many years.
That's a good place to leave it. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. And if this has elicited some sharp reactions or whatever, you can comment wherever you'll be seeing the link to this podcast shared, feedback, reactions to it. Most importantly, please share it far and wide. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Chanza Emmanuel.
Dixon Otieno.
And Nick Canali.
This is our first political podcast.
And 1